Good morning, everybody. We are Group 7, and for our ethical analysis, we chose the BP Deepwater Horizon oil spill.
The Deepwater Horizon oil rig was owned and operated by Transocean and leased by BP. On April 20th, 2010, 41 miles off the coast of Louisiana, the rig exploded and sank, killing 11 workers and resulting in estimates of up to 4 million barrels of oil leaking into the Gulf for 87 days. This spill is recorded as being the largest marine oil spill in the history of marine oil drilling operations, and the leaking was finally capped on July 15th, 2010. On December 15th, the U.S. filed a complaint in district court against BP. Starting on April 20th, 2010, with the initial disaster, it took 4 months until the leak was fully sealed on July 15th. On November 15th, 2012, BP entered a $4 billion criminal plea agreement with the United States. It wasn't until April 2014 that the Coast Guard in Louisiana finally concluded their cleanup patrols, and in January 2015 it was concluded that the final estimates of oil leaked was 3.19 million barrels.
The environmental aspects for the oil spill: over 4 million barrels of oil spilled in the Gulf of Mexico over the course of 87 days. The oil spread between 1,100 and 1,300 meters deep, which caused severe damage to the deep water habitats. This spill also caused damage to over 2,100 kilometers of shoreline, which damaged the delicate ecosystems above and below the water. The scientists conclude that the Deepwater Horizon oil spill killed thousands of marine mammals and sea turtles and contaminated their habitats. In this picture, you can see the environmental impact of the oil on the ocean and the animals. As a case analysis, in the aftermath of the oil spill, the company was charged with multiple offenses, including manslaughter, environmental crimes, and lying to Congress. In November 2012, David Rennie, who is the vice president for exploration in the Gulf of Mexico, was charged with obstructing Congress and making false statements to law enforcement about the rate of oil leaking from the rig. Rennie had provided false information on how much oil was flowing from the well, which is 5,000 barrels of oil per day, but in reality it was much higher. When you amount all the charges against Rennie, he could be facing 10 years in prison.
Our first ethical theory is utilitarian ethics. Utilitarian ethics is the right thing to do in any situation that will do the most good, produce the best outcomes considering the interest of everyone/everything involved.
Our first argument was based on utilitarian ethics as defined prior, and the premises we used were first being Mr. Rainey told a House subcommittee in July 2010 that the rig was only leaking 5,000 barrels of oil per day, but the actual number was estimated internally to be more than 60,000. Second premise, according to a 2014 study, up to 800,000 birds were thought to have died as a result of negative impacts from the spill. More than a third of federal waters in the Gulf were closed to commercial fishing at the peak of the spill due to fears of contamination. If Congress had been made aware of this much greater oil leak rate sooner, more urgency could have been taken to stem the flow, thus possibly lessening the environmental impact. Our conclusion statement is that thus, according to rule utilitarianism, David Rainey was unethical in his decision to lie to Congress about the true flow rate of oil from the rig, as it would be in the interest of the greater environmental good to report accurate numbers so that appropriate action can be taken to lessen the tremendous financial and environmental impact of the disaster.
Our second ethical theory is deontological ethics, which is following a set of rules to distinguish right from wrong. The categorical imperative is a set of commands you must follow regardless of the situation.
The premises for our second argument involving deontological ethics are that, again, Rainey told a House subcommittee in July 2010 that the rig was only leaking 5,000 barrels of oil per day, and the actual number was estimated to be more than 60,000 a day. Lying to Congress is legally covered through a general perjury statute under federal law and can carry a term of imprisonment not exceeding 7 years. Covering up the truth in disasters can mean that there is a lack of supplies and exacerbate the crisis. And negligence in these situations can mean that things like this are seen as normal and contribute to making the world a more dangerous place. In conclusion, according to a deontological point of view, David Rainey was unethical in his decision to lie to Congress about the true flow rate of oil from the rig, as it is a categorical imperative that everyone in society should seek to follow the law and accurately report data that could hurt others, and ensure that no human is treated as a mere means to personal gain and avoidance of punishment.
So some counter arguments slash objections that we wanted to highlight to the two that we had brought up before was that from a virtue ethics point of view, the moral agent, which was David Rainey in this case, had a fiduciary duty to his company and did not want shareholders and non-informed stakeholders to suffer from rumors inflated by too much information being released. So what we mean by this is if he releases higher numbers initially, that's going to cause much more panic, which would cause much more detrimental impact as things kind of cascade according to these panicked up numbers. The second counter argument was that according to act utilitarianism, the moral agent assumed his company was handling it and did not want to cause panic about the problem within the government, thus preventing possible overreach in the short term and resulting in the government taking more systems offline than they might have needed to.
The conclusions and legal results of the disaster. In November 2012, BP pled guilty to 14 criminal charges, including violations of the Clean Water Act and the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, along with 11 counts of manslaughter, carrying a fine of more than 4.5 billion US dollars. David Rainey was charged with obstructing Congress and making false statements to law enforcement for his false claims about how much oil was leaking. However, he never received a prison sentence and was acquitted in June of 2015.
So we listed out the contributions here of each team member and how they contributed to our final presentation. Here are 3 references that we used to get the information to build this presentation, and we now open the floor to any questions from the class.